now. Thanks everybody so much for your attention. And as you can see, Morten Reitoft has popped on screen. He is the editor of INKISH. INKISH has become an essential media company in the global printing industry with inkish.news and inkish.tv. And those are actually web addresses. Both channels are getting more and more viewers and readers and play an indispensable role in sharing the stories of print through amazingly produced films and well-researched content. Morten has become a recognized speaker in the industry, at industry events, at conferences, at webinars, at events he produces himself, and he always delivers his engaging, inspiring, and sometimes alternative perspective to topics. He has a background in the printing industry, working with sales management, and corporate management, with a focus on operational efficiency and achieving business results. On a personal note, I met Morten. Do you know, Morten, is only 6 years ago that I met you. And I immediately gravitated to his orbit. And I honestly have not left since. Morten was doing something that no one else was doing through, it would be insulting to call them videos, so I'm going to refer to them as films. Through film, he was telling the stories of the people of print, but in a way that was telling the business story. So it wasn't about selling the equipment. It was about what was everybody doing with the equipment and how were they achieving business results. And those films helped countless people elevate their business, and it certainly elevated Morten's status in the industry. And I am thrilled to death that he has agreed to join us tonight and present what I'm really going to refer to as a keynote. I learned something fascinating today watching it. Morten, thank you so much for joining us today, for your partnership, for your mentorship, for your friendship, and always being in my Skype window.
Well, thank you very much, Deborah. I right now, I just want to say that I'm very satisfied with having a very low-res webcam on my MacBook here, so you can't see that I'm blushing. So thank you very much. Let me dig directly into first of all, most of the things that Deborah said was not true, of course, but I will try my best to give you a little presentation that hopefully makes sense. And you know, I have the advantage when I come from a strange little country far away. I always start apologizing for my language skills. Then you are already said that you have to extend your ears to understand what I'm trying to talk about. Our payoff for INKISH is we are people, because basically we believe that one of the most important things in the industry is actually the people. The fun thing about having that is can be used for various things, which is really funny. So when I was asked to do this presentation, I obviously thought about we are publishers. And first I wanted to be a novel by myself, Morten B. Reitoft, but then I couldn't spell novel, so I just said by Morten B. Reitoft. So that's how it come along to this one here. And I actually tried to write a little story, and I will spare you from reading it on yourself. But basically, there's a few, I would say, kind of takeaways from this one, because you know there was actually a time where there were no publishers, because there was a time where there was no books. Stories were told mouth to mouth, and basically it was only the church and the rich people and the well-educated people that could read, and they actually had purpose of trying to not make people read and write, because they thought that was a way to suppress freedom of speech, which we, of course, as a media find extremely important. So we have, you know, people of all kinds have always enjoyed stories, and with writing, smart people discovered the supply chain, right? And maybe the word supply chain was not the one that you used in the ancient times, but authors, they needed pen and paper, and they needed a printer, and they needed a distribution, and at some point they needed a bookshop, and certainly there was a role for what we refer to as a publisher. And this is where we are today, more or less. Today, the scene or how the market is developing is entirely different from the past, because authors don't need a pen and paper because they write on computers, most of them. They don't maybe even need a printer because they publish in other formats. It could be ebooks, it could be audible books, it could be specific tablets, it could be in many different forms, basically. And sometimes because of this, the authors don't even need physical distributions, and if they don't need a physical distribution, maybe they don't need a bookshop anymore. So what is the role of the future publisher? In this session, I will hopefully inspire people to have a little broader perspective of the role of a publisher. So get ready, and don't worry, it's not text like this on all my slides. This was just to see if I could write a little that looks something like a book. So my first kind of statement is that the book market is changing. I don't know if you recall these types of bookshops that I'm showing here on this little photo here, but it's not that old. But think for yourself, how long time ago is it that you visited a Barnes and Nobles or a physical bookshop where you browsed through the aisles of the books and had the smell of leather and paper, and maybe you were sitting in the Chesterfields and having a coffee, browsing an arts book to get inspired for things. Some of the things that you today find on the web, and sometimes you don't really even know what's out there because you don't have that browsing experience. There's nothing in my mind that actually resembles 100% what the bookshop did. And you can ask yourself, why are bookshops changing? Well, retail is changing because, I mean, you see these two gentlemen here buying some stuff in a grocery shop. But to be honest, these are maybe starting to become exceptions, because maybe a lot of us are buying grocery from online shops. Maybe we are, changing our buying habits entirely. And of course, the book industry and the publishing industry is a, let's say, a kind of a result of what is happening in society in general. And you can be sad about that development, or you can miss that old times. But as long as the market and as long as we as people work in different directions and do our shoppings in different way, this is only a natural development. So why the extra mile for $1? Because this is what is happening right now both in the printing industry and in the publishing industry. That is basically chasing a lot of money because the new technologies and the new business models are enabling different revenue models. That is something that I find quite interesting and something that we should talk a little bit about now. So when Deborah referred to a screenshot that she liked, I took this one from one of my favorite authors, the British author Ken Follett, and I warmly recommend this one, The Pillars of the Earth. Actually, when you buy it as a physical book, it's a very thick book. It's many pages, obviously. It's a fantastic story about building churches in the medieval time. And when my wife asked me what the book was about, I said it's actually quite funny because it's sex, drugs, and rock and roll in the medieval age. So it's not exactly what you would expect, but it's a fantastic book. And when I searched for this one on the American edition of Amazon, I used that as an example to showcase how many different models you are actually exposed to when you look at this page. So my headline is actually in the bottom of the page, basically saying that business models are changing. And let's dig a little bit into it. You can see quite quite funny actually, because remember that Amazon started as a bookshop, but actually the first price that you are exposed to is the Kindle version for $927. So that indicates that platforms are changing. In the old times, it was a paper book, right? That was you could have it as a paperback, you could have it as a hardcover, but that was essentially the two choices you had. Today, platforms are essential in ways of also selling books. And you can ask yourself whether you want to call it a book, or you wanted to call it a PDF, or you want to call it an EPUB, or you wanted to call it something else. It could also just be seen as content delivered in different ways. And I think that most people understand that they buy depending on what's most convenient for them. If you are traveling a lot and you're on an airplane all the time, the Kindle edition might be very good, but if you think of having a nice library at home, the Kindle version does not really apply to that situation. So that is one example. Then the next one is the hardcover, where you see it's retailed from $16.18, and I call this as a value-added product, because I mean essentially the product is the same. It just printed and bound in a way that gives more value to the buyer, hopefully, and they like the craftsmanship of the book, and they like the hardcover emotion to that product. But it's a value added because basically the content is the same as the paperback that you could see retails for almost half, just next to it. If you look in that actually quite big area that is displayed to the right on your screen, you can see that you can actually get it as an audiobook if you sign up for Audible as a trial thing here. And that is basically introducing another business model, that is the subscription economy. And the subscription economy is quite interesting because you can think of it as when you sign up for a fitness membership, that you might have the best ambitions of going to a fitness club, and basically you pay, I don't know the prices in the US for this, but let's say it costs $20, $30, $40 a month. And you end up keeping the subscription for a long time until you really realize that you will never get to the gym. And then you will terminate the subscription. I think a lot of things like Netflix, like Disney Plus, like Audible, like, all these kind of subscription services end up that actually in the beginning you consume a lot because you think it's kind of free. But after some period, your consumption will basically change into a level where that is maybe less valuable for you, to be dead honest, right? You can see Amazon also have, in this case, 97 used books, selling it from $2.28. And I put this as a never miss a sales opportunity. So you can see that from these different price tags, basically, if people have landed on a Ken Follett book here, you end up in a situation where it's inevitable that basically they want to sell you something, right? And they want to give you all price points available, and they want to give you all options not to get out of the arms of Amazon. They even have the upselling opportunity to the collectible things, and they have the freemium model of the audiobook, as we spoke about just a moment ago. So this is an example of how the publishing industry is changing, because in the good old days, publisher, he was also interested in the printed book and the craftsmanship in the book. Today, publishers are more interested in making sure that the content is available on all the platforms that you would basically need, and now and in the future. So where does that take us? Well, it gives a lot of new opportunities. I have taken a quote here because I wrote a blog post for Hunkler a couple of months ago about publishing. And there was a quite exciting story about the British author, Jane Friedman, because she was signed up with one of the world's largest publishing groups, the HarperCollins. And basically, she was a little bit sick and tired of being a recognized author, and that she had to deliver between 70 and 75% of the book revenue to the publishing company. And as she said, when she signed up with Amazon, a lot of people might think that Amazon is greedy, and they might even think that they are taking too much money away from the authors. But as she said, in this incident, as a self-publisher, she keeps 70% of the revenue to herself. And of course, it creates a new momentum when well-established authors actually can use new technology, new platforms to make more money for themselves, basically. And it also at the same time raises a lot of questions about the role of the publisher. We will get to that in a second as well. Actually now. So you don't have to read this because it's not, I think it's important, but I'm pretty sure that Deborah can put this presentation for download if you need it. But basically, if you look at the value chain, and it's just scratching the surface because there's a lot of more steps to it, but just as an example, you have content, you have production, distribution, sales, marketing, and rights management. So the role of the publisher used to be that, okay, we find the right author, we nurture them, we help them with proofreading, we make the design of the books, and we print it, we even give an advance sometimes, and we make sure that the distribution and warehousing and logistics to the bookshops and the sales material promotion, all those things were already handled by the publisher. And if that is the case, you might think, well, it makes sense to pay a high commission for that kind of services. Of course, you don't have that chance to judge how much does each of these services cost, but that was at least one of the reasons why you could justify those kind of commissions, right? If you look at the new type of business, that I just took some of the same words and actually just changed to the red one. So for example, the content in red, instead of just handing over a manuscript, you basically deliver a ready proofread text. Instead of having a designer from the publishing company, you use Canva or Fiverr or something else. Instead of producing 1,000 or 2,000 or 5,000 books, put them in a warehouse, you do it on demand. You have new revenue models with the web ebooks and audiobooks. There's no warehousing cost. Cost gets variable. There's no capital binding. You get new words like drop shipping. No account managers is involved in the sales and marketing, and all your sales materials converts into electronic, and promotion is out. So I mean, I think you get my point here. So the entire value chain changes because technology and demand and market are changing dramatically. I think that to some extent the publisher today is way more focused on the rights management. How can they license? How can they handle commissions? How can they find new talent? How can they syndicate content into various new types of products and services? And I will revert to that in the end of the presentation as well. But you can see that some of the things in the publishing industry has changed dramatically. So for a publishing company, I don't think the product is the book anymore. And that is a little bit strange because I think that most people today consider the publisher as somebody who is either publishing a magazine or a book. But the term publisher is way broader. We don't have, on INKISH, for example, we don't have any printed matter yet. We will have that in 22. But for now, we still consider ourselves as a publishing company or publisher, even though we publish electronically. So the term publishing has become broadened out because the technology is available, because the demand is changing, and because supply and demand is a matter of getting things to the audience you serve, basically. So if it's not the book that is a product, what is it then? Well, the product is you. Like it or not, we are becoming the product in a lot of different ways. We talk about social media, but I think in a lot of commerce, almost regardless of what type of product we consume, we become the product because the value is not really in the paper or in the book, but who we are and how that can be used to sell more. Some of the things that I am not so happy about in these times we are developing into is the fact that we have our children, our next generations, they are exposed extremely much to advertising in a lot of different channels. And I hope we get blinded from seeing all this advertising. But on the other hand, if we are blinded too much, it will to some extent maybe end the free internet as we know it. So there's not like one way of seeing the issues and the problems. There is a few things that needs to be taken into consideration. So how can a printing company make money? Well, if you look at on-demand production, it's essential to a lot of printing companies today. And the pros and cons is basically on the pro side, you have no stock. You can produce anywhere. You have higher margin on the printed products because you basically shift some of the profit from warehousing and distribution to smooth the production. You have added value based on data-driven data that you use for creating books. You can now create short runs, meaning that everybody is capable of producing a book without having a huge capital cost to it. New opportunities using data. On the con side, you have higher price. And when I write lower diversity, you can ask, it's not diversity in relation to what you in America would typically call diversity, but it's like with the digital printing devices, it's not so easy to change paper all the time. To keep costs down, you have a more commoditized product. And basically that diversity, of course, influences in case you want to have a really nice printed and bound book. And long runs are continue to not be really interesting when we talk digital so far. So the requirements, sorry to say, it's not about technology. We have some wonderful equipment in the market that can do pretty much everything you need, but it's about the digital mindset. The digital mindset and understanding that everything we do is data-driven, driven based on consumer and demands from the consumers is where the market is changing, in my opinion. So we don't sell books anymore, we sell convenience. It's convenience that we don't have to stock books, that we don't have to put them in a huge warehouse, that we don't have to send books to bookshops, but that we can produce and ship on demand. That is simply convenience and way more profitable for a lot of people and a lot of companies, and of course also for the content creators. I took my little screenshot from Amazon and reversed it, because what does it mean for people that want to buy into and make money from the Amazon model? Basically offer services that can be part of the subscription, be the one that adds value to the added value products, like it can be on enhancement, deliver in the right format. Why have somebody else to convert data that you already have got for print? You could convert it to any format. I'd have no idea right now, but don't miss a sales opportunity if you can sell into something that Amazon or companies alike would be interested in. Do it. Try to own as much as you can from the supply chain, and remember that 1 cent is always more than 0. So if you have an opportunity to make money from services, this is something that you should really consider, especially if you're in the printing industry. And then one of the last slides, I promise you, I say that change is good. Sometimes we always look at some point of conservatism where we always believe that, okay, we need to have the good old times back, but change is good. The reason why we have change is basically because people want it. We don't change our consumer behaviors if we don't like the way we're going, otherwise we could just go the other way. So when we see something that is relevant to how we operate our own business, we now have an opportunity to, comply and attach ourselves to that change and see if we can both make money, and I think even more important, maybe have fun doing it while doing it, right? Almost the final slide, even it says so here. Again, delivery, production, revenue, profit, and add value. There's no free lunch. So basically, when you have the delivery, make sure that you deliver what you're promised, but don't over-deliver if you are on a very low margin. Charge for your service, upsell, automate. On the production, make sure that your supply chain on paper and packaging and print is 100% aligned. Make sure that you can diversify your products, because that is where you can really differentiate from the commodity. On the revenue, have base pricing, have value-added pricing, service prices, and be transparent. Today, I think that a lot of us don't really care whether we make 5%, 10%, or 50% margins, as long as it's kind of transparent to everybody who's making and what value we add to that value chain. On the profit, always in focus, of course. Again, automate all your processes to increase your profit, ensure your supply chain, as already mentioned, and on the added value thing, make sure that you have technology that can offer that enhancement, so your Amazon or whoever you work with or your customers work with can't change you as part of this in case they need something that you can't deliver. And on the radar, this I promise is the very final slide. If you think of all the content out there, there is a lot of content that relates to data that could be personalized kind of thing. Example, if you have let's say that you have a TikTok channel, and I'm actually giving you an example from real life right now. Imagine that you have a TikTok channel where you present recipes and cooking. Imagine that we have software that can now take that video content and create it into really good content in writing and in a book. And then that book can be printed and delivered to you as a unica. Then you have an idea of what's going on. HP with their SiteFlow is very, very soon releasing a product. They have now in the UK testing 200 brand owners like TikToks, like Instagram people, where it's mainly in the beginning for cookbooks and for children books, but it's quite amazing. I have seen a few of them. It's brilliant, it's fantastic, and it's great because they create a new value to content that is already available in the market, and it will not take away business from existing publishers and existing content providers, but actually add entirely new ways of seeing content. I just think it's fantastic. So with that said, I just want to say thank you very much for allowing me to be here, Deborah. That was wonderful. I hope that my blah, blah, blah from Denmark here at midnight is valuable to you. And I really appreciate having Project Peacock. And I also want to say, Deborah, that I really appreciate the friendship we have. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Everybody was pretty much riveted. They didn't move. They've been sitting very quiet. I think just really absorbing the way you presented, this evolving business model of publishing. So I actually do have a question for you. If you were that we do have some end users on the here, we've got some actual publishers there. Looking at that Amazon screenshot, which I'm completely obsessed with because I never realized how many business models I was looking at on one page and how genius it was, and how I'm going to steal that and figure out how we can utilize something like that. When you were talking about the opportunities to kind of tag along onto some of these business models, do you have any thoughts on, maybe how the marketing people, the creative people can make suggestions to the publishers if they're, gonna, or however that works at Amazon? I mean, Amazon's getting the books from somewhere. There's still publishers involved, yeah?
Yeah, to some extent there are publishers involved, but there is a growing self-publishing perspective to this segment, and that is something that is, I won't say that it's scaring, but it changes the value, because I think that publishers have played a tremendously important role because they are to some extent less commercial. I'm not saying that in a negative way, but they are more focused on actually bringing good literature to the market. So if you see poetry, if you see really good novels, that kind of stuff requires people to evaluate and judge things. To answer your questions, I don't have any specific ideas about things. What I'm just saying that what Amazon does so well, and I think that we are all victims to that success, is basically that they see every little contact point on their website they see as a sales opportunity, and that is maybe something that is a little bit different. And maybe from Europe to the US, is that think that we are less commercial when it comes to advertising and commercial activities than you are in the US. But it gives Amazon the huge advantage because they can expose the right price, the right offer at the moment where you need it. And that is, again, data driven. They know where you are at, they know what kind of profiling they do at you. And that is something that I think that will be challenged in the future, because one good thing about the market that I appreciate a lot is that a lot of consumers are actually looking to some kind of proximity to where they buy, to have a local knowledge about how things are produced. So it's not getting so industrialized, but getting back to not good old times, but at least some of the things where I'm pretty sure that Martin, he will show some handcrafted books, and I think that there's a huge demand for something where you really see the craftsmanship and where you understand the value of the product rather than just of the transaction.
Okay, we do have one question, and it is in regard to like, how do you see changes in publishing for designers? Like if people are fine illustrators and things like that. So I'm not going to add anything else to David's question.
Oh, that's a good one, because first of all, there's a lot of designers out there, right? And without jeopardizing the value of design, it's unfortunately to some extent also being commoditized a little bit, because with more accessible tools at lower prices, like the subscriptions of Photoshop and Illustrator and those kind of products, a lot of people start to see themselves as designers without any formal degree and without any real knowledge about how to do the things. So when you present yourself, there is, unfortunately, in my opinion as well, a tendency that it is price that is driving design rather than the quality of understanding the entire project and the work of it. And a good example of how this is seen in the market is, for example, Canva, Fiverr, Upwork, all those kind of services that where, I mean, I was just about to say people using illegal cracked programs in India and Philippines and Bangladesh and those places. They can and they can live for $3 an hour. It makes it very, very difficult to compete, and that is the cultural understanding of the context is very important. I mean, I think that most of you guys know that even though we have generic global brands like Apple and Teslas and Google and those kinds, BMWs and Volkswagen, to bring a few Europeans to the table, when the day is over, there is a huge design difference in taste and what works from, for example, the US and Europe, right? So from a publishing perspective, I think that go back to the good old books where you had like a few pages where you do some great designs, produce a real book with 10 friends or 50 friends or how many friends you have, and make sure that you can send these books to. I think still like a printed sample of what you do as a designer has a tremendous value to the people that are going to buy the design, to be honest.
Morten, thank you so much. Tak, as we say in Denmark, for all your help and in everything you do for the Printerverse and everything you do for me, and for really an amazing and thought-provoking presentation that everybody really did like. And if Morten, if you do send me those slides, I will make sure that everybody has access to them. I will put them in the Project Peacock booth for download. Oh no, you can actually put them in the INKISH booth. There's an INKISH booth. You could all go visit Morten in there. Morten, thank you so much.